Chapter 16 of Stand By for Mars. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Richard Kilmer. Stand By for Mars by Carey Rockwell. Chapter 16. Under the tremendous drive of the stern rockets, the silver ship suddenly hurtled forward as if shot out of a cannon. The dangerous tube slid out of the stern of the ship and was quickly left behind as the Lady Venus sped in the opposite direction. "That's it," yelled Tom. "Hold full space speed. We dumped the tube, but we're still close enough for it to blow us from here to Pluto." "I tracked it on the radar, Tom," yelled Roger. "I think we're far enough away to miss." At that moment a tremendous flash of light filled the radar scanner as the mass exploded miles to the rear of the Lady Venus. "There it goes!" shouted Roger. "Great jumping Jupiter!" yelled Tom. "And we're still in one piece! We did it!" From the power deck, Astro's bull-like roar could be heard through the whole ship. "Give me an open circuit, Tom," said Astro. "I want to operate the air blowers down here and try to get rid of some of that radiation. I have to get into the control chamber and see what's going on." Tom flipped a switch on the board and set the ship on automatic flight. Then, turning to the teleceiver, he switched the set on. "Lady Venus to Polaris," said Tom. "Come in, Polaris. Come in." "Strong here on Polaris," the officer's voice crackled over the speakers. "By the rings of Saturn, I should log you three space-brained idiots for everything in the book." Strong's face gradually focused on the teleceiver screen, and he stared at Tom coldly. "That was the most foolish bit of heroics I've ever seen, and if I had my way, well..." The captain's glare melted into a smile. "I'll spend the rest of my life being known as the skipper of the three heroes. Well done, Corbett. It was foolish and dangerous, but well done." Tom, his face changing visibly with each change in Strong's attitude, finally broke out into a grin. "Thank you, sir," said Tom, "but Astro and Roger did as much as I did." "I'm sure they did," replied Strong. "Tell them I think it was one of the... He thought a moment and then added, "darndest, most foolish thing, most..." "Yes, sir," said Tom, trying hard to control his face. He knew the moment for disciplining had passed, and that Captain Strong was just overwhelmed with concern for their safety. "Stand by the airlocks, Corbett. We're coming aboard again. We're pretty cramped for space here on the Polaris." Just then Astro yelled up from the power deck. "Hey, Tom," he called. "If Captain Strong is thinking about putting those passengers back aboard, I think you'd better tell him about the radiation. I haven't been able to flush it all out yet, and since we only have 3 lead-lined suits..." He left the statement unfinished. "I get you, Astro," replied Tom. He turned back to the teleceiver and faced Strong. "Astro says the ship is still hot from radiation, sir, and that he hasn't been able to flush it out with the blowers." Mused Strong thoughtfully. "Well, in that case, stand by, Corbett. I'll get in touch with Commander Walters right away." "Very well, sir," replied Tom. He turned from the teleceiver and climbed up to the radar deck. "Well, hotshot," said Roger, "looks like you've made yourself a hero this trip." "What do you mean by that, Roger?" "First you run off with top honors on the space maneuvers, and now you save the ship and have Strong eating out of your hand." "That's not very funny, Roger," said Tom. "I think it is," drawled Roger. Tom studied the blond cadet for a moment. "What's eating you, Roger? Since the day you came into the academy, you've acted like you've hated every minute of it. And yet, on the other hand, I've seen you act like it was the most important thing in your life. Why?" "I told you once, Corbett," said Roger with a sneering air, which Tom knew he used when he was on the defensive, "that I had my own special reason for being here. I'm not a hero, Corbett. Never was and never will be. You're strictly the hero type, tried and true, 1,000 just like you all through the academy and the Solar Guard. Strong is a hero type." "Then what about Al James?" asked Tom. "What about that time in Atom City when you defended the academy?" "Uh-huh," grunted Roger. "I wasn't defending the academy. I was just avoiding a fight." He paused and eyed Tom between half-closed lids. "You'll never do anything I can't." or won't do, just as well, Tom. The difference between us is simple. I'm in the Academy for a reason, a special reason. You're here, like most of the other cadets, because you believe in it. That's the difference between you, me, and Astro. You believe in it, I don't. I don't believe in anything but Roger Manning. Tom faced him squarely. I'm not going to buy that, Roger. I don't think that's true. And the reasons I don't believe it are many. You have a chip on your shoulder, yes, but I don't think you're selfish, or that you only believe in Manning. If you did, you wouldn't be here on the Lady Venus. You had your chance to escape back in the rocket tube, but you came back, Roger, and you made a liar out of yourself. Hey, you guys, yelled Astro, coming up behind them. I thought we left that stuff back at the Academy. Tom turned to face the power deck cadet. What's cooking below, Astro? Were you able to get rid of the radiation? Nah, replied the cadet from Venus. Too hot. Couldn't even open the hatch. It'll take a special job with the big equipment at the space shipyards. We need their big blowers and anti-radiation flushers to clean this baby up. Then I'd better tell Captain Strong right away. He's going to get in touch with Commander Walters at the Academy for orders. Yeah, you're right, said Astro. There isn't a chance of getting those people back aboard here now. Once we opened up that outer control deck to dump that tube, the whole joint started buzzing with radioactive electrons. Tom turned to the ladder leading to the control deck and disappeared through the hatch, leaving Astro and Roger alone. What was that little bit of space gas about, Roger? Ah, nothing, replied Roger. Just a little argument on who's the biggest hero. Roger smiled and waved a hand in a friendly gesture. Tom won, 2-1. He sure handled that control deck like he had been born here all right, said Astro. Well, I've got to take a look at those motors. We'll be doing something soon, and whatever it is, we'll need those power boxes to get us where we want to go. Yeah, said Roger, and I've got to get a course and a position. He turned to the chart screen and began plotting rapidly. Down at the control deck, Strong was listening to Tom. And Astro said we needed the special equipment at the space shipyards to clean out the radiation, sir. If we took passengers aboard and it suddenly shot up, well, we only have 3 lead-lined suits to protect us. Very well, Corbett, replied Strong. I just received orders from Commander Walters to proceed to Mars with both ships. I'll blast off now, and you 3 follow along on the Lady Venus. Any questions? I don't have any, sir, Tom said, but I'll check with Roger and Astro to see if they have any. Tom turned to the intercom and informed the radar and power deck cadets of their orders, and asked if there were any questions. Both replied that everything on the ship was ready to blast off immediately. Tom turned back to the teleceiver. No questions, sir, reported Tom. We're all set to blast off. Very well, Corbett, said Strong. I'm going to make as much speed as possible to get these people on Mars. The crew of the Lady Venus will take over the radar and power decks. Okay, sir, and spaceman's luck, said Tom. We'll see you on Mars. Tom stood beside the crystal port on the control deck and watched the rocket cruiser Polaris's stern grow red from her jets and then quickly disappear into the vastness of space, visible only as a white blip on the radar scanner. Give me a course to Mars, Roger, said Tom. Astro, stand by to blast off with as much speed as you can safely get out of this old wagon. And stand by for Mars. The 2 cadets quickly reported their departments ready, and following the course Roger plotted, Astro soon had the Lady Venus blasting through space, heading for Mars. Mars, 4th planet in order from the sun, loomed like a giant red gem against a perfect backdrop of deep black space. The Lady Venus, rocketing through the inky blackness, a dull red glow from her 3 remaining rockets, blasted steadily ahead to the planet that was crisscrossed with wide, spacious canals. Last time I was on Mars, said Astro to Tom and Roger over a cup of tea, was about 2 years ago. I was bucking rockets on an old tub called the Space Plunger. It was on a shuttle run from the Martian South Pole to Venusport, hauling vegetables. What a life! Burning up on Venus and then freezing half to death at the South Pole on Mars. Astro shook his head as the vivid memory took him back for a moment. From what I hear, said Tom, there isn't much to see but the few cities, the mountains, the deserts, and the canals. Yeah, commented Roger. Big deal. Rocket into the wild depths of space and see the greatest hunk of wasteland in the universe. The three boys were silent, listening to the steady hum of the rockets, driving them forward towards Mars. For 4 days they had traveled on the Lady Venus, enjoying the many luxuries found on the passenger ship. Now, with their destination only a few hours away, they were having a light snack before making a touchdown on Mars. "You know," Tom said quietly, "I've been thinking. As far back as the 20th century, Earthmen have wanted to get to Mars, and finally they did. And what have they found? Nothing but a planet full of dry sand, a few canals, and dwarf mountains." "That's exactly what I've been saying," said Roger. "The only man who ever got anything out of all this was the first man to make it to Mars and return. He got the name, the glory, and a paragraph in a history book. And after that, nothing. He got up and climbed the ladder to the radar deck, leaving Astro and Tom alone." Suddenly the ship lurched to one side. "What's that?" cried Tom. A bell began to ring, then another, and then 3 more. Finally, the entire ship was vibrating with the clanging of emergency bells. Astro made a diving leap for the ladder leading down to the power deck, with Tom lunging for the control board. Quickly, Tom glanced about the huge board with its many different gauges and dials, searching for the one that would indicate the trouble. His eye spotted a huge gauge. A small light beside it flashed off and on. "By the moons of Jupiter, we've run out of reactant fuel!" "Tom, Tom!" shouted Astro from the power deck. "We're smack out of reactant feed." "Isn't there any left at all?" asked Tom. "Not even enough to get us into Marsopolis?" "We haven't enough left to keep the generator going," said Astro. "Everything, including the lights and teleceiver, will go any minute." "Then we can't change course?" "Right," drawled Roger. "And if we can't change course, the one we're on now will take us straight into Mars gravity and we crash." "Send out an emergency call right away, Roger," said Tom. "Can't, spaceboy," replied Roger in his lazy drawl. "Not enough juice to call for help, or haven't you noticed you're standing in the dark?" "But how could this happen?" asked Tom, puzzled. "We were only going at half speed, and using just 3 rockets." "When we got rid of that hot tube back in space," explained Astro grimly, "we dumped the main reactant mass. There isn't a thing we can do." "We've got one choice," said Tom hollowly. "We can either pile out now in spacesuits and use the jet boat and hope for someone to pick us up before the oxygen gives out, or we can ride the space wagon right on in. Make up your minds quick. We're already inside Mars's gravity pull." There was a pause, and Astro's voice filled the control deck. "I'll ride this baby right to the bottom. If I'm going to splash in, I'll take it on solid ground, even if it is Mars and not Venus. I don't want to wash out in space." "That goes for me too," said Roger. "Okay," said Tom. "Here we go. Just keep your fingers crossed that we hit the desert instead of the mountains, or we'll be smeared across those rocks like applesauce. Spaceman's luck, fellas." "Spaceman's luck, both of you," said Astro. "Just plain ordinary luck," commented Roger, "and plenty of it." The 3 boys quickly strapped themselves into acceleration seats, with Tom hooking up an emergency relay switch that he could hold in his hand. He hoped he would remain conscious long enough to throw the switch and start the water sprinkler in case the ship caught fire. The Lady Venus flashed into the thin atmosphere from the void of space, and the 3 cadets imagined that they could hear the shriek of the ship as it cut through the thin air. Tom figured his speed rapidly, and counting on the thinness of the atmosphere, he estimated that it would take 11 seconds for the ship to crash. He began to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He thought briefly of his family and how nice they had been to him. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The ship crashed. End of chapter 16.